At Thanksgiving, I watched my family discover my $12 million fortune when my sister grabbed my laptop. Mom immediately demanded, "Your sister deserves a share of your success," as they planned my money. I called security to have them removed from my office. But let me explain how we got to that shocking moment and why it was the most satisfying day of my life. I'm Emma, 38, and I need to get this story off my chest because the aftermath has been absolutely incredible. You see, I spent 30 years being the invisible daughter in a family where my sister Rachel could do no wrong. But what they didn't know was that their failed daughter had quietly built one of the most successful jewelry authentication companies in the Midwest. When they discovered my wealth that Thanksgiving, their reaction revealed everything I needed to know about cutting toxic people out of your life forever. Everything changed when I was 8, and Rachel was born 2 months premature. Our house transformed into a medical facility with industrial-strength disinfection, hand sanitizer stations in every room, and the constant smell of bleach that still makes me nauseous today. But here's what really messed me up. Whenever I showed the slightest symptom of illness, I was immediately sent to Grandma Marie's or Aunt Kelly's house, every single time. One sneeze and I was packing bags like I was some kind of biological weapon threatening their precious daughter. I tried everything to earn their attention through achievement. Perfect grades? Mom barely looked up from Rachel's doctor appointment calendar. First prize at the science fair with a renewable energy project? Dad asked if I could store the display board in the garage because Rachel might be allergic to cardboard dust. The real breaking point came when I was 12. I'd spent months teaching myself to play Bridge Over Troubled Water on piano for the school talent show. Rachel had a 99.1-degree fever that night. So guess who had no family in the audience? 2 weeks later, the entire extended family attended Rachel's 15-minute flute recital where she butchered hot cross buns. That's when I retreated to my room and discovered my sanctuary in art history and antique books. Rachel claimed she was allergic to my lavender air freshener, so it became the only place she wouldn't invade. Grandma Marie started showing me her vintage jewelry collection, teaching me to organize and catalog her pieces. Those hours spent learning about authentication, maker's marks, and historical significance would prove prophetic. By high school, I treated everything like a strategic mission. My desk looked like something from an organization magazine with color-coded notes and meticulously planned study schedules. I joined every club that wouldn't interfere with my part-time job at Carson's Diner, where Carol, the owner, remembered my birthday when my own parents forgot. Debate team taught me to dismantle arguments while maintaining composure and how to negotiate effectively. I won state championships twice, but my parents couldn't attend because Rachel had major soccer games. She was on the C team and didn't even play. Junior year brought my SAT breakthrough, a perfect 1,600 score. Less than 1% of test takers achieve that. I rushed home to share the news and found Mom helping Rachel with English homework. "That's nice, honey, but keep it down. Rachel's trying to concentrate for her big test tomorrow," was Mom's response. Rachel added, "Yeah, some of us actually have to study, Miss Perfect." My perfect SAT scores never made it to the refrigerator, but Rachel's C+ in English got prime real estate with a "we're so proud of you" magnet. I handled my entire college application process alone, applying to 15 schools without telling anyone. When acceptances started arriving from Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and Michigan, each with substantial scholarship offers, I stored them in a locked box under my bed. The day I received my full ride to University of Michigan, Rachel made JV cheerleading. Guess which achievement warranted a family celebration at Olive Garden while I ate microwave mac and cheese in my room? College flew by in a blur of independence and academic success. I graduated summa cum laude from Michigan, while my parents were busy helping Rachel transfer to her 3rd college in 2 years. That's where my real story begins. I landed an entry-level position at a prestigious auction house in Detroit, starting in estate sales cataloging wealthy deceased individuals' belongings. Not glamorous, but it paid bills and utilized my antique knowledge. My breakthrough came with the Kingston estate. Mrs. Kingston was an elderly widow who died childless, leaving behind what everyone assumed was costume jewelry. While cataloging this massive collection, an Art Deco brooch caught my attention. Something felt different about the weight and the complex clasping mechanism. I spent my lunch break researching old jewelry markers and signatures, staying late to use the company's antique jewelry databases. The more I investigated, the more certain I became that this wasn't costume jewelry. As the new employee, nobody would believe me if I claimed we had potential treasure. So I applied my debate team training. I meticulously prepared my argument. 2 weeks of lunch breaks and evenings were spent learning everything about Art Deco jewelry authentication. I even used my meager savings for an online gemology course. When I finally approached my boss, Mr. Harrison, with a complete presentation, including comparative images and historical documentation, he was initially dismissive. "Emma, we've already cataloged those as costume pieces." But when I showed him maker's marks that perfectly matched Cartier's 1925 signatures, he started paying attention. That costume brooch sold for $47,000 at auction, part of a limited collection created for European royalty in the 1920s. Harrison began trusting me with other authentication projects. My systematic organizational skills and attention to detail started paying off as I discovered significant pieces others had overlooked. I was developing contacts with collectors, understanding market dynamics, and earning substantial commission checks. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving financially. At family Sunday dinners, which I still attended like a masochist, the conversations remained predictably dismissive. "Emma's still at that antique shop, right?" Mom would ask. "Actually, it's an auction house, and I just authenticated a rare Tiffany piece," I'd respond. Rachel would interrupt with, "Oh my God, speaking of jewelry, you guys have to see this charm bracelet I bought at the mall." But I didn't care anymore. I'd found something entirely mine, something I excelled at, something unrelated to being Rachel's disappointing sister. 2 years into my auction house career came the Rothschild collection, a massive estate from old money family generating industry buzz. While cataloging their jewelry, I noticed a seemingly ordinary Art Nouveau piece everyone else had dismissed. I spent 3 sleepless days researching it, discovering it was from a famous French jeweler's private collection, supposedly lost during World War II. When it sold at auction for $238,000, Harrison called me into his office. "Emma, you're wasting your talent here. You should be running your own authentication business." Initially, I dismissed the idea. Start a business with what money? But the concept took root. I began freelance authentication projects, building reputation through word-of-mouth referrals from private collectors who appreciated my expertise. One night, sitting in my modest apartment surrounded by jewelry manuals and authentication tools I'd gradually accumulated, I had an epiphany. I could actually do this. I could build something entirely my own. So I made the terrifying decision to take out a car loan, empty my savings account, and rent a tiny office space above a Chinese restaurant. The rent was cheap because it constantly smelled like Kung Pao chicken and the Wi-Fi only worked in the corner by the window, but it was mine. Those first months were absolutely terrifying. I'd wake at 4 a.m. in cold sweats, calculating how many months until my savings ran out. My office furniture consisted of a card table from Goodwill and a chair I literally found on the curb. But in high-end jewelry authentication, reputation and contacts are everything, and my auction house experience provided both. I started small with local antique dealers, charging lower fees than established firms, but delivering unmatched attention to detail. Word spread about my ability to identify overlooked pieces. 6 months later came my watershed moment. A dealer I'd worked with at the auction house contacted me about a collection of Victorian-era brooches. The owner wanted authentication before selling. It turned out to be a massive collection spanning 3 generations. I worked for 2 weeks straight, barely sleeping, documenting everything meticulously. I discovered two extremely rare pieces that had been misidentified as later replicas. The owner was so thrilled with my detailed analysis that she not only paid my fee, but offered me a 10% commission when the pieces sold. That commission? $86,000. More money than I'd earned in the previous 2 years combined. Suddenly my phone was ringing constantly. Private collectors had heard about my talent for finding missed treasures. Estate lawyers sought advice on inherited jewelry. Even my former auction house started sending me authentication work. I'm pretty sure Harrison was secretly helping spread the word about my expertise. By year 2, I'd hired my first employee, Jenny, a fresh gemology graduate who reminded me of myself. Brilliant but overlooked because she was quiet. She's now my head of authentication and worth her weight in gold. The firm expanded faster than I could have imagined. We moved to a proper downtown office. Goodbye Kung Pao chicken smell, and I assembled a team of specialists. I'd earned a reputation for finding historically significant pieces that others misidentified as costume jewelry. Success brought its own challenges, particularly keeping it secret from my family. They still thought I worked in some little antique shop. Rachel would make sarcastic comments during family dinners. "Emma, I have some old jewelry I was going to donate to Goodwill. Maybe your little shop would want it?" This while I just authenticated a $1.2 million Fabergé piece that morning. "Sure, I'll look into it," I'd respond. Mom continued introducing me to everyone as my other daughter who works with old jewelry or something, while I was being quoted in Forbes under my company name and had recently opened our 3rd office. The secret became almost enjoyable, like a private joke. I'd sit at Sunday dinner in my Target clearance outfit, actually Chanel, listening to Rachel discuss her entry-level marketing job. While knowing I'd just closed a deal worth more than her annual salary, I even started playing games with myself, wearing authentic Harry Winston pieces to family gatherings to see if anyone noticed. They never did. Rachel once spent 20 minutes showing off her expensive $200 Michael Kors watch while I wore a vintage Patek Philippe worth more than her car. By year 5, we'd established offices in Detroit, Chicago, and New York. I spent more time on planes than in my own bed, building a reputation for discretion among wealthy clients who wanted their jewelry authenticated without public attention. The money was enormous. I needed a team of financial advisors. Yet I maintained a relatively modest lifestyle. Nice but not flashy house, high-end but understated car. I splurged only on my home office with advanced authentication equipment, the most sophisticated security system money could buy, and a custom-built vault that would make Fort Knox envious. The irony was delicious. My family thought I was being frugal to help them financially. Mom would say things like, "It's so sweet of Emma to help out. She must be eating nothing but ramen to manage it," while I just authenticated a collection earning me a commission larger than their mortgage. That's when I started the anonymous transfers. When Aunt Kelly mentioned they were struggling with Rachel's student loans and medical bills, and Mom casually mentioned they might have to sell the house, I couldn't let that happen. Despite everything, it was still my childhood home. So I began monthly transfers of $5,000 to their account. When they asked how I could afford it, I claimed I was contributing $1,000 by living on rice and beans, while family members covered the rest. The money helped, but created unexpected consequences. My parents began treating me with patronizing pity, like I was some noble poverty case sacrificing everything to support the family. Meanwhile, Rachel's spending became extravagant. She'd arrive at dinner with expensive bags, claiming they were outlet finds. They weren't. I can spot genuine Gucci at 20 paces. She started taking lavish vacations, bragging on Instagram about her fortunate life. I'm convinced she used my support money for shopping sprees, but I stayed silent. The irony was wonderful. Then came the MBA drama. Rachel announced she wanted to return to school for her MBA at another private university. Only the best for the golden child, I thought. Mom called me in tears about how they couldn't afford it. When I suggested Rachel look at state schools with good programs, Mom responded, "Oh, honey, you don't understand. Your sister needs to maintain certain standards. But speaking of helping, could you increase your monthly contribution for a few years?" I increased it to $7,000 monthly. My accounts barely noticed, but watching them praise Rachel for taking initiative with her education, while assuming I was living on ramen to help out stung. Here's the real kicker. I was scheduled to give a guest seminar at the same business school Rachel wanted to attend. The dean had personally invited me to lecture on luxury goods authentication and business development. My family had no idea. I had to make excuses about why I couldn't attend Sunday dinner that week. My achievement started feeling like a double life, as if I were some corporate superhero with a secret identity. By day, I ran a multi-million-dollar authentication business with offices in 3 cities. By evening, I was just Emma, the disappointing daughter who worked at that little antique shop. The weight of this deception was becoming unbearable. Rachel made increasingly rude comments about my career. Mom apologized to friends for my modest lifestyle. Dad regularly suggested I get a real job. I always knew it would end dramatically. I just didn't expect it to implode so spectacularly on Thanksgiving. 2 weeks before the holiday, Mom called crying about her back pain. She'd been diagnosed with a herniated disc and felt overwhelmed about cooking Thanksgiving dinner for 20 people. Now, I'd like to say I offered to help purely from goodness, but honestly, I was tired of pretending her dried turkey was edible. "Why don't I handle the food this year? I can have it catered," I suggested. "Oh, honey, we can't afford a caterer," she replied. "Don't worry about the cost. I've been saving up," I assured her, though she worried I wasn't taking out loans. I coordinated everything with the high-end catering firm I used for business events. They do incredible work, the kind of food that makes you wonder why anyone bothers cooking themselves. It cost more than my parents thought I earned in 2 months, but whatever. Thanksgiving morning arrived and I was feeling optimistic. I brought my laptop because I needed to monitor a major online auction in Hong Kong. A magnificent Art Nouveau necklace was up for bid, and I had a client interested in authentication if they won. The catered meal arrived perfectly on schedule. Rachel, of course, had to comment. "Store-bought stuffing, really, Emma. Mom's is so much better." This from someone who once set off the smoke alarm making toast. Mom apologized to everyone for not cooking herself, but you could tell they were enjoying the gourmet meal. Rachel shut up after tasting the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts, which cost more per plate than her weekly grocery budget. I stepped away between dinner and dessert to check my laptop. The auction was getting interesting, and I needed to be ready if my client won the bid. I set up in my old bedroom, which Mom had kept exactly the same since high school, while Rachel's room had undergone 3 renovations. That's when everything went catastrophically wrong. I'd left my authentication software running with multiple tabs displaying various accounts and current contracts. Rachel came in without knocking. Some things never change. Supposedly to borrow my phone charger. She saw my laptop screen and realized this was her golden opportunity to finally expose how pathetic her older sister really was. "Let's show everyone what Emma's really been up to," Rachel announced with a smirk. Before I could stop her, she grabbed my laptop and marched into the dining room where 20 family members sat contentedly, full of gourmet turkey and half-drunk on expensive wine they thought was from Trader Joe's. "Time to see what kind of important work Emma's doing on Thanksgiving," Rachel declared triumphantly, apparently expecting to humiliate me with whatever minor antique transactions she assumed I was conducting. She flipped the laptop screen around for everyone to see. The room went completely silent. You could hear the antique clock I'd gotten Mom for Christmas ticking. She thought it was a reproduction. My screen displayed. Current account balance, $12. Million. Pending authentication contract, $485,000. Recent transaction, $1 to million. Hong Kong auction monitoring. Company quarterly profit report, $4 to $2 million. Rachel's face cycled through 5 different emotions in 3 seconds, finally landing somewhere between shock and nausea. She actually swayed on her feet. "This can't be right," she whispered. "Rachel, honey, what is it?" Mom called out. She's rich. Emma's rich," Rachel announced in a cracking voice. If possible, the silence deepened. Then Mom started laughing, actually giggling like it was the funniest joke she'd ever heard. "Don't be silly. Emma works at that little antique shop." I stood up slowly, straightening my basic cashmere sweater that cost more than their monthly mortgage payment. "Actually, Mom, I own one of the largest jewelry authentication companies in the country. For years, every time you made those antique shop comments, I was authenticating pieces worth millions. That little business you never asked about has offices in 3 cities. Dad choked on his wine. Aunt Kelly dropped her fork. Uncle Jim started coughing violently. Then Mom's laughter transformed into something else entirely. Her face turned red, then purple. She stood up so quickly her chair toppled over. "You have millions and you let us struggle?" she screamed. "Struggle? I send you $7,000 every month," I replied calmly. "While sitting on millions, your sister has student loans," she shot back. There it was. Not congratulations or "we're so proud," just outrage that I hadn't given them more money. Rachel started crying. Shocking, I know. Sobbing about how she deserved to know and how I'd betrayed the family. Dad joined in with accusations about selfishness and ingratitude. That's when I finally lost it. Years of being overlooked, years of dismissal, years of being treated like the family disappointment. Everything poured out. Raised me? You shipped me off to Grandma's every time I sneezed. You missed every achievement, every award, every milestone because Rachel might feel left out. You never saved a penny for my college but took out loans for her private schools. And now you're angry that I built something for myself? The next 5 minutes were pure chaos. Mom screamed about family obligations. Dad yelled about ungrateful children. Rachel alternated between sobbing and demanding to know exactly how much money I had. Meanwhile, the professional catering team tried to serve dessert while looking extremely uncomfortable. I grabbed my laptop, picked up my Hermes bag, which Mom had previously complimented as a nice replica, and walked out. Behind me, I could hear Mom already discussing how to spend my money, something about Rachel's MBA and a new car. I drove home in my sensible car, a limited edition BMW, while my phone exploded with text messages. Within 1 hour of leaving dinner, I had 47 missed calls and over 200 text messages. Mom's progression was particularly interesting. "How dare you walk out on family? We need to talk about this like adults. Your sister deserves a share of your success. I've already called a realtor about houses in better neighborhoods. Why aren't you answering? This is your mother." Rachel had fully embraced social media warfare, posting an enormous Facebook rant about how her millionaire sister had been hoarding wealth while watching her beloved family struggle. The comments section was insane with distant cousins and former high school classmates I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly having strong opinions about my moral character. But here's what really got me. Rachel actually posted, "All those years of me trying to help Emma's career, giving her advice about moving up from that little antique shop, and she was secretly wealthy. The betrayal hurt so much." The only career advice she'd ever given me was suggesting I try selling jewelry on Etsy. The harassment escalated quickly. Extended family members started calling with guilt trips about family obligations. Even people I barely knew felt compelled to share their thoughts on wealth sharing. But the real entertainment began when they showed up at my workplace. Monday morning, I arrived at the office to find Mom, Dad, and Rachel sitting in our reception area. They'd told Jenny, my receptionist, they had an appointment for authentication services. Rachel clutched her Michael Kors bag like it was genuinely valuable. "We've discussed it as a family," Mom announced. "A family discussion without the family member you're discussing?" I replied. Ignoring me, she continued, "We think it's only fair that you set up trust funds for everyone." "I need at least $2 million to start my new life properly," Rachel added. "And your mother and I would like to retire. We're thinking a beach house in Florida," Dad chimed in. "Did you miss the part where I've been sending you $7,000 monthly?" I asked. "That's nothing compared to what you have. You owe us," Rachel responded with stunning entitlement. "I owe you for what exactly? The years of being ignored, the missed graduations, the constant comparisons?" "Don't be dramatic, Emma. We gave you everything," Mom replied. "No, I gave myself everything. And you know what? I'm done." Right there in my own office lobby, I pulled out my phone and canceled the monthly transfers to their account. Mom gasped as if I'd physically slapped her. Rachel started her fake crying routine but stopped when she realized it wasn't working. Then things got ugly. They refused to leave. I had to call security. Watching my 60-year-old mother being escorted out while screaming about ungrateful children was surreal. Jenny asked if I wanted to press charges. I declined, but had their names added to the building's "Do Not Admit" list. The harassment continued for weeks through new phone numbers, fake email addresses, even attempts to contact me through our company's customer service line. I finally had to issue a formal legal notice threatening harassment charges. Mom played her final card by calling Grandma Marie. But here's the thing about Grandma Marie. She's smarter than all of them combined. Her response? "Good for Emma. About time someone in this family succeeded on their own terms." Mom didn't speak to her for 2 months after that. It's been 6 months since that Thanksgiving revelation. I moved to a new house with enhanced security and changed all my contact information. The company is doing better than ever. Turns out my family drama actually attracted several high-profile clients who respected my discretion in handling the situation. Rachel continues posting passive-aggressive updates about toxic wealth and family betrayal. I heard she's trying to start her own jewelry authentication business. Good luck with that. Mom and Dad finally stopped trying to contact me when my lawyer sent them an official letter explaining how harassment charges would affect their lives. They now tell everyone they never wanted my money anyway and that they're praying for my salvation. Here's the best part. For the first time in my life, I feel completely free. No more Sunday dinners filled with subtle insults. No more downplaying my accomplishments to spare their feelings. No more subsidizing the Rachel show. My therapist says I'm finally establishing healthy boundaries. I say I'm finally living authentically. Grandma Marie is coming to visit next month to help me catalog a new collection. And to Rachel, since I know you're probably reading this, that Cartier bracelet you're wearing in your latest Instagram post, definitely a fake. Just saying.